How does some dark entity gain entrance into you? By having you agree with it. Too many people have done this. Too many people and too many gates are wide open. Too many access points to a place that should be shut off for man. Do you guys realize that hell was never made for mankind? It was not made for mankind. But hell is this invisible concept in this reality that people can hardly get a grip on. So let me give you something you can notice in the New Testament. Do you not know that demons are frightened and terrified of hell itself? Hell is made for the fallen angels. Satan's an inherent liar. His name is not Satan. His name is not devil. Very few people know his name. You won't hear his name used on television or the media. You hear titles, but too many people are entrusting in what these spirits are telling them. Anyway, they don't tell the truth. But in this world of entertainment, lots of people are starting to believe some pretty fantastic things that are simply not founded within sound doctrine. They're drifting, and we have to be careful not to drift. God gave you power over every principality and power in the earth. God gave you that power through Christ. Do you know how many people don't believe that? And they're frightened of Satan. The Bible tells us what his name is, but we don't magnify darkness. To name it, to name something like that, believe it or not, when you name something, you're calling it to you. You may use a word without purpose, but because you're reusing a word that was here before you were, you're passing on a word that's already purposed. You become a part of what that word's going to carry out. Just because you say a word and you have no purpose behind the word, it does not mean it's not going to do anything. It means that you have spoken a word that's already doing something, and you have become a part of it. So you have to watch your speech and realize the power of your mouth in your own life. You can't damage anybody else's life like that. You can talk about a person and turn others against them, yes. But you cannot speak anything on anybody else's life. I heard people say that too. Well, you got to speak life. Don't speak death into my life. You can't speak death into somebody else's life. All you can do is speak something. And if somebody else receives what you're saying, then they'll have it. But a person can speak death and curses and everything else all day long. I'm not a part of that. They speak it over their own lives. Life and death is in the power of the tongue for you. You can speak life into your situation or death. And to be frank with you, most people speak death, and they should speak life. To speak life is not to speak a lie. For example, suppose I got a car that's about to be repossessed. How do you speak life into that? Anybody know? Not a lie, but how do you speak life? By faith. How do you speak life? Let me share this with you. A lot of people believe they have read a definition of faith in the Bible. Because it says in the Bible, it says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So what do they say? They say, speak it into existence. That's what they say. Speak it into existence. In other words, if somebody's going to come to repossess your car, how do you speak life into that situation? Or is that something you would instantly do? I can tell you right now, it's not something I would instantly do. I'm not going to speak life into something that my Father is permitting for a very specific reason, because I know I believe in Christ. And if you know you believe in Christ, nothing takes place in your life without cause. That means there's a heavenly reason behind everything in your life. So I have to seek the Lord and say, Lord, what are you doing here? And what do I need to do? Show me. He'll not fail to show you. Who vowed to take care of you from beginning to end, that you would prosper as your soul prospers? Who made that vow in your life? That as you grow spiritually, so will your life change. Who made that vow that they were going to deliver you all the way? That's right. Jesus did. He made that vow. Now, if he's going to deliver us all the way, then first we have to identify what is killing us. We don't know what's killing us. And so there are so many things that have been removed from our lives that we thought we really believed it was ours, and we call it a loss. You have had no losses in your life. That's a mystery when the Lord says, anything you lose here on this earth, there's nothing you can lose that you will not gain in the heavens. Why? Because you cannot lose anything, ever, because you belong to Christ. If it belongs to you, it's impossible for you to lose it. But I'll tell you this, we hold on to plenty of things that are not ours. The Lord wants to deliver you, and he will deliver you from beginning to end. You're going to have deliverance. So that process, in that process of deliverance, he's taking away things that would potentially kill you. that things that defeat your faith and give you a false sense of confidence. All these things are important because you're about to face your foe. You're going to face a real foe. Humanity has not seen evil yet, but they will. In the Bible, it's described as a thick darkness. You're going to see what that thick darkness is. You have not seen evil. It's almost like, can you guys imagine? You guys remember when you were sick? You had a real bad nagging cold and it was so irritating. So you were so miserable. You guys remember how miserable you were? Now, some of you guys can relate to what I'm about to say. I mean, you're just miserable. And you're like, oh, Lord, take this away. This is just killing me. You can't breathe. But all of a sudden you get bad news. The worst news you had in years. In that moment, you're not thinking about your cold. You don't even bring it up. You're so focused on the trauma and the trouble that all of a sudden your most agonizing days with that cold became a vacation because now you have a real problem. Well, that's about to happen. You have people walking around this world saying, oh, I'm so miserable. No, they don't know what misery is. I believe the words of the Lord, who has told us that mankind has not seen misery, but that they will see misery. I believe in him. We have not seen it, but that we will see it. And there will be no comparison to it. There was none like it before. There will be none like it after. And it's happening in God's timing. If the Lord said, I'm going to initiate, the last days, do you need more time? I would say yes. Number one, I've entrusted my own life to the Lord, so it's not for me. Doesn't matter if I live or die, that's his call for my life. But I would always say I need more time because there are so many people who just don't have the confidence yet to stand by themselves. And when you take an interest in your fellow man, that's precisely what you think about. You start thinking, can they make it? Can they survive it? Will they be discouraged here or there? Is somebody going to come, or are they strong enough by way of their faith not to be deceived? Did I do enough? One of my number one questions that I wrestle with every single night is, did I do enough? Or did I put my foot in my mouth again? Did I discourage or encourage? When you talk like shows like these, the more you talk, the more you're going to worry. If you said something that would discourage anything in somebody's life, it's not something anybody would take lightly. I'm not one of those who's going to sit there and talk because I think I'm right. No, it's because I desire to complement the work of Christ. Isn't that why we're here? To complement the gospel for the sake of our fellow man. The Lord has already written so many times that my life is in his hands. Take no thought of your life, he said, what you're going to eat or drink or wear and do all these things. And I don't take thought of my life. But I do take thought of my life and spend much of my time in thought about my fellow man all the time, from young children to the elderly. There was a time that I didn't do enough. I didn't do anything, and I knew it. One day, under deployment, a thought hit me, I'm not coming back. Everybody started feeling that way. We're not coming back. This is it. I began to wonder, what did I have undone? And a big laundry list of things hit my mind. See, when you're under a lot of pressure, and there is a life or death threat hovering over your head, and there's a good chance you won't make it back, that's when you begin to think soberly. You're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about your contribution to everybody else, because you realize, wait a minute, if I die, if I'm gone and I can't do anything else, what did I actually do here? Did I just whine the entire time because I didn't have this or that? What did I do for my Lord? Knowing what my Lord did, he died for people. What did I do? And so when I thought about that, I came up short. But then I said, I'll never do that again. I'll never go through that again. And from that point on, every day of my life, I had to make sure everything was not undone so I could have peace. That's why there was a time when I would lay down. You guys know how it is. You shut your eyes and your mind is going 1,000 miles an hour. That's not happened to me in years. If I close my eyes to rest, there's nothing. Because of this, there is a scripture. Having done all of what you can do to stand therefore. But does anybody know what that means? That holds great meaning, but that meaning is just not discussed enough. How many of you know what that means? Having done all of what you can do to stand therefore. How many of you really know what that means? Many people out there right now, they're unsure about the relationship with Christ. There's a reason why, and it can be fixed, it can be solved in a moment. There are many people out there, when they get by themselves, they're unsure if they're going to be with the Lord or not if something happened to them. And there's a reason for that, and it can be solved in one moment. See, once you go through this a few times, you really do understand it. Having done all of what you can do to stand is the key. When you exhaust everything you know how to do, now, we're not talking about what you don't know how to do. Forget about that. And only work with those things you know how to do. Only work with those things that are within your power. If you exhaust that in your assistance of your brothers and your sisters, let me tell you something. When you do that, your conscience is clear because you'll know that you know you have done everything you could. And when you do that, there is no guilt. You see, it is guilt that keeps you up at night. It is guilt that speaks in your head when you shut your eyes of all the undone things. It is guilt that can steal the peace in your life. But when you do everything you can possibly do of those things within your power, there's a peace that will settle upon you. That's a principle, and it will happen every time. It won't happen sometimes. It'll happen every time. Have you guys ever had something that you could have done, but you didn't do it? But you knew you could have, and it weighs on your mind, doesn't it? Because you have power to do it, and you know you should have done it, but you don't. You guys also know that when you perform it, all that restlessness regarding that situation is gone. I'm careful every day to exhaust what I can do. I don't worry about what I cannot do. If you have no power to change it at that moment, it is not yours to worry about. When you have power to change something is when you have the substance, the resources, and everything else. But if you don't have those things to change a situation, it is not yours to worry about. Those burdens are not yours. Those are the very burdens you give to the Lord. You can give those to the Lord. Now, you can not give a burden to the Lord if He gave you power to accomplish it. That is your task. Do you guys understand that? That's why when you have power to do something, but you lay it on the shoulders of the Lord, it goes nowhere. It's not going to His shoulders because He empowered you to perform it. But for example, say that your child is in the hospital. You have no power to change that situation except to pray. But did you pray? Parents get into a panic, and let me tell you what happens, because stressful days are coming up. And I'm telling you now that people will become enemies with a snap of a finger. And why would they do this? Because every time something happens to a child, one parent looks at the other and says, do something. They demand somebody do something. And when those people are not able to perform it, the person who made the demand for somebody to do something is going to blame everybody for the condition of that child. You know how many times I've seen that? People just break down, all their orderly thinking and everything else is gone. In fact, when true trauma comes, people act like vicious animals. It doesn't matter how they speak. I'm not fooled by days of peace like we live in now. I know that when a time of great trial comes, that's when you find out who people are. You'll not know who a person is in peacetime. You can enjoy your fellow man in peacetime, but I'm telling you now, you don't know who they are until you see them in a trial. That means every single time you were distressed and you shut everybody out, that's who you are. You're not the person who can tolerate everybody. Now, there's an advantage to knowing who you are. If you're that person, you now are armed with what to pray for. Lord, help me. I have no patience with my fellow man. See how that works? Lord, help me. Now, when you do that, when you acknowledge these things in your time of heaviness, then you'll know exactly what you're working with, and you can make corrections. And when that same circumstance or a heavier one comes again, you will not be the person you were before, because you will have dealt with it. I'm telling you, these are solutions so that you can walk into unknown days with a very different confidence, a confidence with a foundation that can be trusted, a foundation that by the prophets up into the apostles is proven, a true foundation in your trust in the living God, because everything He spoke is truth. One of the issues is, so long as we think we are the experts, we're not going to accept the knowledge from on high. We're going to reject revelation. Man doesn't have the answer for your tomorrow. Man can only occupy today. These things are important because the days of manifestation are surely coming. You guys remember when I told you a day would come when men will cower in the corner of their homes? There will be no escape. It'll be like a nightmare that you cannot wake up from. It'll be the same conditions, the same loudness, the same fogginess of thought, but those with the foundation will stand up spiritually, which will cause their flesh to respond in a different way. and there will be no noise. There will be only peace in a time of the greatest storm this earth has ever seen. Now make no mistake, the Lord said a few times that everybody will consider it perfectly, everything he said. We won't make the mistakes in our judgment that we make now, because we'll be under such pressure that it will come down to our relationship, our true relationship with Christ. We will have no excuses for anything at that moment. And we're not going to face this as a group, holding hands. No, what we face, we're going to do one-on-one. This will be our time of refinement. It's not the wrath of God. It's a different time, just like World War I. That was more like a crucible. Just like World War II, when lots of people died and unfortunate things happened. That wasn't the end of the world. But to the folks who were in World War II, it seemed like the end of the world. To those who were engaged in combat, to those who were engaged in several different civilian things here in the world, to those who were slaves in the time of slavery, that was like the end of the world. But we knew it wasn't. But to them it was. They weren't raptured out in those days. Nope, they stayed here and they died here. And again, we'll face the same thing, but it's all for our deliverance. Be careful how you see history. Be careful how you see today. Remember, you're in this land. You're in this land. If all of us were praising the Lord, assembled in a building, and 16 tornadoes came through that place, the Lord could do one of a few things, but I believe, based upon our hearts, that he would hear, he would act accordingly, which means if we had a job to do collectively, that tornado, no matter how much it got close to us, it would not take us out. No matter how much somebody danced a voodoo dance for it to hit the building we were in, it wouldn't work. If the Lord has a work for you, you're going to do that work. You're going to be allotted time to do that work, and nothing will disrupt that. Remember, one of the Jews told his fellow Jews, he said, be careful what you do to these men. We've seen others come in before, claiming that they were this, that, and the other, and all their works came to nothing, and they all died, even those who followed them. But if this be of the Lord, nothing will stop it. See, I like that. If something is of the Lord, nothing will stop it. It'll look like an impossible work. It's still going to go forward. It'll look like it's failing every single day, but it will still make waves and go forward. It will prosper and go forward. And it will look like it's about to fall apart at any moment, but it goes forward. That's a work of the Lord. A work of the Lord no man can stop. Only the Lord himself has power to do that. He will not give anything power to stop it. It will be completed and nothing will interrupt it. Now, man's work, anything of us, that's a different story. If it's of us, normally, when men make a path for themselves, they have to cheat, they have to lie, they have to steal. So they can continue going on that path. These are the works of the world. But when the Lord calls you for something, he paves the way, and nothing is able to halt it. How many times were the apostles jailed, but it still went forward? How many times were they stopped and delayed and detained, but it still went forward? How many times did Paul write a letter because he couldn't get to a place he said he was going to be at, but he couldn't get there? But he wrote a letter, still the same effect. Nothing could stop the work. If you belong to Christ, and within your heart of hearts, you want to serve the Lord, you didn't put that there. The Lord did. You just simply said yes to it, and it's growing. And I'm going to tell you something. If you have that within you, you have something to do, and nothing is going to stop it. Once you commit to putting your foot forward and saying, Lord, I just want to go ahead and do it, I'm telling you now, nothing is going to stop it. Every day of your life is a decision to do the work or to not do the work. In those times, you are committed to do the work, then you will do the work, and nothing will get in your way. Why? Because it's not your work, it's not my work, it is the Lord's work. Does anything on earth have power to stop the Lord's work? No, it does not. But I've had plenty of things that were my own work. Let's see, some of them flipped, some of them went head first right to the ocean. Still others floated away, burned up, disintegrated. But when it came to anything of the Lord, nothing was able to halt it. So long as I said yes, and in my heart of hearts I was committed to doing it. The Lord worked everything out in his timing, his way. And I'm telling you, just to be a student of his hand in your own life is a marvel. To see how the Lord perpetuates all of his works, to go forward no matter what, is a marvel. He'll do the impossible. It'll be seen as the impossible. Let me give you a note here. If any work of the Lord is seen as impossible, then what this means is this. Suppose the world is rich and everybody's got money. Well, the work of the Lord is always going to be seen as the impossible. That means you may not have money, but the work is going to go forward. You will be sustained. You will lack nothing because somehow, some way, the Lord will move or do what he has to do to sustain his word in your life so long as you're in servitude. And for those of you who start in that course of servitude, you know and I know it's just like Sodom and Gomorrah. If I were to ever say, well, I don't think I want to serve the Lord anymore, that would be just like Lot turning around and looking back at Sodom and Gomorrah. And I know I would perish in the same hour. Why? Because I have never been so complete until the day I said yes to the Lord and acted on my agreement with that. When I agreed to serve the Lord and I acted on it, I finally had fulfillment. See, it happened one day that I did something. Nobody knew I did it. And it touched the other person's life, and the other person didn't even know I did it. In that same moment, I had a reward I can describe to you. And it was no miraculous something that everybody could see. It was a return. I can only say it was life put in me. It was fulfillment. It was this feeling, but it wasn't a feeling because it was beyond the flesh. It was absolute fulfillment. I can never find that anyplace else doing anything else. But in the one thing I did, which is to really exhaust everything I am to assist someone who will not recognize me for assisting them, and for it to prosper, not me. That's when I get the reward. It's not about me being known to help anybody. It's about being unknown, to do an authentic work. Listen, if you were to try and help a baby survive, you're not going to brag about it because it was a real work. When something is a real work, you're not going to go advertise it. I've not known anybody to advertise a real work. When it's that sincere, hardly anybody ever knows about it. They don't even know you did it. That person can hate you. And when you do a good work to them and it prospers in their life, you get a reward you can never get anywhere else. That's precisely what happened to me, and I found that out. I said, there it is. That's what I've been looking for all my little short life. Since that moment, I've been trying to replicate it, and I have many times. I never look for repayment. See, my life is about me doing what I can for somebody else, no matter who knows. And if you think about it, when you get before the Lord, what's he going to ask you? What did he say would be his main focus when you stand before him? I'm telling you this for a reason. To stand before the Lord and give answer for your life is hypothetical for the believer. But what would be the major question? You ready? It's not going to be what everybody did to you. The Lord's not going to say, did Mr. Johnny mistreat you? Did Sister so-and-so mistreat you? That's not what he's going to ask you. So it's not going to be about what everybody did to you or what they didn't do to you. It's going to be about what you did for everybody else or what you did not do for everybody else. Stay on that one just for a moment. Think about it. When you stand before the Lord, it's not going to be about what everybody did to you. It's going to be about what you did for everybody else or what you did not do for everybody else. Do you guys see that? You have to get that in your spirits. The Lord's not going to ask you what somebody did to you. You're not going to stand before him and say, well, I couldn't complete this because I was traumatized. That's not going to work. That's not what he's going to ask you. He's going to ask you what you did for everybody else. That's going to be the focus. Now, I said this is hypothetical. Why? Does anybody know why? I said, for a saint, that's hypothetical. When I was little, somebody told me, they said, well, you're going to give answer for everything you ever did in your life. That's what they said, right? And I thought about it. I said, oh, yeah. So years went on, and I started reading. And then when you read, you find out these little technical things. And it said that when God forgives us through Jesus, he throws our sins in the sea of forgetfulness. Well, if it's thrown in the sea of forgetfulness, how can it be recalled? Then I began to read some more. And I was reading about the judgment and who's going to be judged. I was reading Revelation, Isaiah, Ezekiel, all the prophetic books, and I found some distinctions that are amazing. Something about Christ few know. We kind of stick with traditional sayings, but is it biblical? I understand that there are lots of traditional things, but is it biblical? See, folks, I'm saying this because you may as well face it. We're going to be in a war soon. Are you guys ready for that? Are you really ready for conflict? And do you know what that involves? And this conflict is going to open the door to a brand new way of living. But we're also going to deal with the displacement event in this world prior to the war. Now, the war is close, but the displacement event is even closer. See, there are some things forming, and lives are going to be changed. But listen, the most notable thing that will come from all of it is the brand new system. You know, they had a discussion 2 weeks ago about how people are not really accepting the new ways of operation in any country. how resistive they found the populace to be. There were national reports on this, of how resistive the populace is. It's almost like they used COVID-19 to gauge the temperature of the people to see what they would accept and what they would not accept. They have determined something. It would take an act of massive devastation to alter the direction of our resistance. It would take an act of devastation for people to have confidence in their governments again. Right now, people don't have confidence in government, and that is a big problem. But I can tell you this, if 75% of the populace were displaced, and it was some organization that organized medicine and food and things like that, and gave the people help, that's going to make a difference. Now, you may say, no, it isn't, but follow me on this. So imagine a massive displacement event that affects 75% of this world. Now, imagine this event lasting for a year and a half. That means you're not going to the store after 2 months to get anything. That means law enforcement and certain internal guard elements are gone. Everything is in chaos. Command structure gone. Everything is gone. People will be afraid to drive to certain places because of people, not because of monsters and animals, but because of people like your neighbor, because everybody's armed. And they're going to take those arms and everything else they can take. And when they start running low in supplies, they're going to take it from those who can't defend themselves. So at that point, it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. It's going to be neighbor robbing neighbor for the sake of food. Now imagine during that time, some organization coming up saying, we have supplies. You hear a helicopter you haven't heard in months. They're dropping supplies. You want to know who it's from. You're so thankful. See, and if they tried this right now, you guys would reject it, just like people are at the vaccines. Given some time, when the look on your baby's faces change, when your stomach is hungry and your health is not so good, when conditions are poor, when you're at your weakest moment, if they were to drop anything in a package, if it were 1 inch by 1 inch and they said, eat this will fill you up for 2 days, and it did so, you would be so thankful. Many people would be thankful to the point to where they would say, hey, I'm going to go with these guys. I don't want to go back to desolation again. I want to have some sense of normalcy, and I'll do anything to have it. Oop, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like prayer lists that go up. Lord, give me normalcy again. We say that all the time. Think about the nature of your own prayers. Isn't that what we pray for? Give me normalcy. Give me what that guy has and that guy has. Make me comfortable like I was, a couple of years ago, whatever the case is. Give me normalcy. We want to have a vacation. We want life to be normal. Well, what is normal? People will ask for it. They're not going to want to sleep in their cars, cramped up in their cars. They're not going to want to stay in their homes with a loaded shotgun because they're afraid somebody's going to come in and overpower them or take their food or do worse. They can't trust each other. Lawlessness all over the place. As soon as somebody organizes anything, people are going to be appreciative. If they're going to say, we're going to them, forget this life out here, that's too rough. All of us can talk tough right now because it has not happened. But if you were in harsh conditions for a few weeks, a few months, everything changes. At that point, the only thing you'll have to sustain you from going crazy is your spirit. A displacement event we will have. Something beyond comprehension. And it'll be beyond comprehension because we've not built civilization the way we have in this cycle of timing that we know of, but it's coming anyway. The indications are already there. How many of you are truly prepared for that? A side note, you can be prepared. That does not mean you're going to be ready. You can prepare for everything, but it does not mean you're going to be ready for everything. It's not what it means, okay? Let's not deceive ourselves. I'm kind of battle-hardened. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be in full control or something like that takes place. I've been qualified probably more than most, but that doesn't mean I'm going to hold it together during that time. I constantly rely upon my Lord, and I hope that you will too. And I hope that with sobriety, we'll think of our days differently.